In this episode we complete the bridge by adding the embossed plasticard brick cladding and some basic detailing. Plan for today is to clad this then. The walls aren't too bad, so that's what the first stage I've got to do. Not the first stage, but one of the areas I've got to do. As I said in the last video, I think I said in the last video, I want to use this wheel stuff, which is their from their materials pack, and it's SSMP231 flexible viaduct bridge lining, so it lines the top curve of the viaducts like that. Now it's nice and it's bendy, which suits me fine because I can get it round the curve without it cracking or splitting. The normal wheel stuff is a lot thicker than this. It's almost rubbery, isn't it? It's difficult to cut, and it would be difficult to bend it round and get it to hold in that position. So this stuff is probably ideal. I think I've got enough to do this. I've got 4 sheets there and I've probably got another 4 or 5 up there. So that's going to be the walls, and it's kind of carrying on the process really. I made up the mock-up, which was drawing the plan out, cutting it, and then I got that thin white card and stuck it to it, drew around the inside of this and peeled it away, and then used that as a template for this. And then I'm going to do a similar thing here. I'm going to put this up against the wall, push it in so it follows the curve and it's up tight against the curve of the actual structure, and then from the back use a pencil to trace around the inside, take it off and then cut it out, which is fairly straightforward hopefully. But it's the road bed that I'm a bit worried about. You know, what material's best to use this, and the reason for that is I'm not sure yet what surface I want on the road bed. Now it could be granite sets, it could be cobblestones, it could be tarmac, or it could just be a country earth track. Now if I was doing cobblestones or something like that, then it would be a card I suppose, or plastic, like this plastic materials sheets from Wheels again, and I could cut out, stick on there. But for now I could just put on some plasticard. Now the problem with this is if I put this on and then I want to go down the country laying earth track sort of thing, once I put my scatter materials on here, would they glue to this or would they peel off? So I think I need something a bit more absorbent than this, so the scatter materials or the glues can key into it. So the other thing I've got is about 3 or 4 sheets of this, and I bought this thinking it was balsa wood. I can't remember what I bought it for now, but as I say, I've got a couple of sheets left over. It's nice and flexible, it's thin, so what I was thinking of doing was using this as the road bed, and then as I say, in the future if I want to put scatter materials on here or plaster of Paris or something like that, the water can soak into it and it can help bond it in there. The other idea was using the plastic sheet, was that if then I wanted to go down the earth track kind of route, I could use one of those impregnated bandage, the plaster of Paris impregnated bandage that I could put on here in a couple of layers, and then that would give me the surface to adapt for my earth track. But it's a bit of a toss-up really, isn't it? Anyway, that decision's got to be made, and I'll do that in a moment. But once I've got the road bed on there, these sidewalls have got to protrude up. As I said, this is the road surface and not the height of the parapets. So get the road surface on, get the sidewalls up to that, and then work out how high the parapets will go. And then I've got to do the little coping stones on the top of that, and also I've got to do the internal cladding of the bridges. Now what I had thought of was to use this brick stuff again. As I say, it's fairly flexible, but I'm not sure if it's that flexible. So if it was warmed up it would probably bend, but it's going to be an awkward shape to cut out. So what I did was made this paper template, and that fits in there, but it's quite a weird shape, but it is the right shape to go in there. But when I've taken it out to put it on one of these sheets, that template's bigger than the sheet, which means I would have to have joins in there, and I don't want joins. I could put little formers in, but No, you're not going to see a lot of it. So I've decided all I'm going to do is just on the faces that you'll see from the side of the boards, base boards you're standing on, I'm just going to put brick in there, and you won't see too high up. I'm not going to run camera trains as far as I know through here, so you won't see the roofs. So I don't need to go that much detail on them. Right, I think enough waffling. Time for a bit of practical work and get these clad. As I say, I want to get it done by the end of today, so we'll see how we get on. Okay, so decision made. I've just tried cutting this. It does cut fairly well, but it takes about 8 or 9 slices to get through it, and then you've got to sand down the edges. And I'm just thinking of the damp down in the shed again, so I think I'm going to leave this and go down the plastic card. And although this is flimsy, by the time it's glued on there, hopefully it'll be all right. So the process for doing this parapet is exactly the same. This is just a filler, so it's not that accurate. It's just there to give a bit of padding for the width. So I haven't taken a lot of care in cutting this out. As long as it's not too high on the profile, it'll suit me for my purposes. The actual cladding will come slightly higher. Exactly the same process again. Taken some scrap A4 paper, stuck it to the side of the bridge, and to do that I bought a new Pritt stick. Seeing the other one had all gone off and splodgy and horrible, and a mess that still isn't dry down in the shed. So yeah, trace round there, which is the orange line, and then what I did was at 1.5 centimetre spaces I drew a vertical line, and then I've measured up from the profile line I've drawn. I've measured up about 12 millimetres, I think it was, so that height is about 4 foot. What is it, 4 millimetres to the foot, so it's 3 foot, isn't it? My maths is going to pop there. So yeah, just drew it out. Now I've got 2 lines to cut through. Once I've cut that, I'll have a template which will end up as a paper strip, and I'm trying to look for the ones I've just done for this side, but I can't find them. Anyway, the paper strip I stick again with the Pritt stick down to the plastic card, trace round it so I can see the lines, then cut it out and then stick it on the side. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the next one on, and then we'll start looking at doing the actual brick cladding. Excitement. If you build a brick wall and the bricks are in straight lines, that's fine, no problem. But if you were to do an arch, a humpback bridge, and the parapet follows the line of the humpback, you get a curve. So what you do is get something like that, which now means that you've got to chip off bits of brick. And you've got all these little infills. Now you can chip it off and put that bit in there and that bit in there like that to fill it up. But that's an awful waste of time and a lot of waste of materials. So when you look at humpback bridges, as I say, especially on canals, what they do is they actually follow the line, like the example here. I'd like to do something like that on the side of the bridge. I don't just want brick courses running across. I think that'll look a bit boring. I wanted to add a little bit of character, because I keep talking about character on my railway. It just adds that little extra bit and makes it a bit more pleasing to the eye. more prototypical. It's a horrible word, isn't it? But yeah, did I want straight brick courses? And I don't really. I want to decorate that bridge and make it look nice. Back in Victorian times, the people who built brick structures did put a little bit of effort into it, and they made it something special. So how did I represent that curve? Well, I thought about getting the standard brick sheet from, what is it, Pico Wheels, whatever it is. And then when you look at it, you could actually be very careful and score between each of the courses of bricks. And then if you put two lots together, I suppose, you could, instead of like that, if you bent them, you would get your curve. But these bricks, this stuff is so difficult to cut, and you will keep needing to score it. Also, I find when you do it, even if you use a thin, sharp blade, as you cut, you get a turn up of the plastic, the material. So that would need cleaning up, and it's a lot of work. And then when you glue it, it doesn't always go back together properly, does it? You kind of get a glue line on it, and the glue melts the plastic, which is the idea of it, and it looks a bit messy. So no, I thought not to worry about that stuff. This is the bendy stuff, and it's a bit brittle, so I was worried I could cut it out on there and then try and bend that to get the lines, but I think that would snap. The other thing would be to actually get, and this is the problem, isn't it? These bricks, when you're dealing with OO gauge, 4mm to the foot, a brick is 3mm by 1mm, and that's tiny, isn't it? So I thought I could get some the plastic card and cut strips 1mm wide, and before you do that, you score them down every 3mm so you get the brick shape, and then maybe they would bend, or maybe they wouldn't, maybe they would twist. And then once you've got them on there, once you scored them, if you wanted to do the courses and put some paint in there, would it actually take, would it be deep enough to take? And also you've got the problem as well, because when you stick each course on, will that glue melt the edges of the plastic, and it would just end up, and it wouldn't look nice either. It's bad enough when you're trying to butt two bits together, isn't it? You always end up with that line. So to do it repeatedly on there, it would be an absolute nightmare. The final option, trying to get that curve, not the final option for the cladding, but the final option for that curve, would be to cut out 1mm by 3mm bricks and stick them on individually. Yeah, nice effect. Would it look good at the end of the day? Possibly. Would it be deep enough to get your paint in, to get your brick courses painted up? Again, possibly. But can you imagine how many hours it would take to put on? I don't know what size that is, but I'm probably talking 5,000 bricks, 6,000 bricks. I don't want to waste that amount of time doing it. So, how can I get a nice decorative look on that bridge, something a bit different, so it doesn't just look like bland brickwork? Now earlier I said about when I popped down to AGR Model Railways to buy some additional sheets of this, I also picked up these, and these are, and if we get the glasses back down, SS55 brick arch overlays. And we've got one out, and the pack comes with various different sizes of these and shapes of these. So the big ones just happened, and if I know I shouldn't do that, I should cut it off, but the big ones just happened to fit the arches I've already cut out. These are designed for OO, where your rolling stock is obviously higher than my OO9 stuff. So I was a bit worried about how this would look with just having a short amount of brickwork between the ground level and the start of the arch. But this isn't decoration, this is actually functional. And these are bricks that are turned up on site. So there's not like that, like a decoration. They're turned up and they are laid that way. Now there's a reason for that. That is that this is what supports the infill and the road bed above. And if you just have a quick look at this picture of a little bridge that's across a brook down the road from me, you'll see what I mean. So what we've got to do now is start doing the cladding, and we are, as I said before, using this cladding sheet because it bends nicely. But where I'm going to start is I'm not going to start at the end and work my way round, because I'm worried about where these joints are going to end up. So I don't want joints above the arches. That's quite thin there. I want something a bit more substantial. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start with this arch here, put that in and then work from side to side. And obviously the next bit that goes in here will cover that arch without having to join in an appropriate place. It's the same process. I'm going to maybe do a template, or I might just hold this up against the model and just draw around and cut it out. Once I've cut it out, I've obviously got to then put this on and cut round here. So I've got the cut out for the actual arch, but I don't want these stuck on the outside. I think I want these actually to be inserted, so this is as flush as possible. Otherwise it just looks like these are stuck on. Now I think some bridges you do get where the brickwork sticks out a little bit, but I just want it, if possible, recessed in. I think it just look a bit tidier and a bit more neater. So I'm going to get on with this, and I might film some of it. I might just go ahead and do it and then show you what the results are at the end. Welcome back to the shed. As you can see, the bridge has been clad now, and I'm quite pleased with the results. You might be picking up some white splodges on this video at different places. They're not white splodges, it's where the light's reflecting off where the glue's run. That will be sorted out once this is painted, but the painting of this is at a future date. The idea at the moment was just to get this built and in place so that I could carry on with the scenery. So what have we done? We've put the cladding in place, obviously. It was quite interesting to do. This brick, although it's designed to bend, which it does quite nicely, it is so brittle. When you're cutting it out, it chips and it marks and it splits. You've got to be really careful. It's best to try and cut from the edge inwards, and then not score too deep, and then once you've done a few scores it will snap quite nicely, as long as you're going along a vertical or horizontal line. If you try and do a diagonal line, then when you try and break it or cut it, it actually splits along the brick courses, which wasn't helpful. Now we found that out mainly when we were trying to do the insides of the tunnel apertures. Now this brick stuff does bend. It doesn't bend enough to get round into the radiuses that I want. So I did put it in hot water, really hot water, it was almost boiling, to make it as soft as possible. And I did get a bit more bend on it, and it might have just gone in there, but it's slightly distorted as well. It didn't come out as a nice curve. It had a few like dents or indentations in it for some reason. But once you get it bent into the right direction, if you want to try and trim it up, that's when it starts to crack and chip. So all I've done at the moment is put walls in here high enough up that when it is actually in place, and that's the kind of view you'll get, these brick walls are sufficient to give the impression that the walls go through. And again, the railway, you won't be able to view it from the back, so these walls haven't been continued onto the other side. That wasn't very helpful, was it? So yeah, I'll get onto those in a second. Right, so that's the tunnel entrances. Now these buttresses, and it's a bit annoying that's come off. I made these up and I measured them to the right height, and I've sanded them down so that they are square, okay, which was not a brilliant idea to start with. This brick fascia on here is not only curved around to follow the contours of the bridge face, but it doesn't go in dead flat as well, so you've got little dips in it as well. And then when you come to stick this on, you can get maybe one side that sticks on firmly, but the other side you end up with gaps. Now I can hopefully address that with a bit of filler later, or put something in to like a little bush or something to hide the worst ones, and I think that's why that's come off. What I think I'll do is take this back upstairs, and as you can see they're hollow underneath, and I'll just put some hot glue up the top of them, and that should keep them on. Now the one here is missing because I'm not sure where the height. I've got one upstairs that I made, but I don't know where the landform's going to come, so I'll put the landform in and then cut one of these off to fit in place later if I need it. The landform might come up high enough, it's not needed. I've had also put them on the back, but I'm not sure how much of that you'll see from the angles that you can get in here. It probably didn't need going on there anyway. The one on this end is slightly different design because that's quite close to where the branch line is. and just before I drop that, that comes out and it'd be behind that one, but it kind of comes off an angle, so I haven't got a lot of room to get that one in. So that's the buttresses. What else can I tell you about this? Right, the white line on here is called a belt course, and the idea of that is when they build these bridges, they build it obviously from the ground upwards. The brickwork up to that level has to be thick, and because it's when the infill's in here, the infill will be trying to push these bricks outwards. Now that's another reason you've got the buttresses on there, to help give it support, and hopefully the brick wall won't come away. But once you get up to this level where the road bed is, or the track bed if you're doing a railway over road bridge or over river bridge, this is as I say, called the belt course, and then this is where your parapet goes, and this basically forms the foundation for the parapet to sit on. Now the parapet obviously doesn't need to be as thick, it's just there to stop people falling over the edge. There's no forces pushing constantly on it trying to push it out. Right, what's next on there? Oh yeah, and then we've got the coping stones or capping stones on the top. Now I did look at using some of the wheels stuff again, and it comes in a sheet like this, and you've got gutters on here and all sorts, but you've got these on here. Now these I could have used, but you can't bend them. They will bend a little bit, but what I didn't want was them going in straight lines. So you had a straight bit and straight bit and straight bit and straight bit. It just would have looked wrong. It wouldn't have followed the contours again of the bridge. So what I did was cut all these out of a piece of plastic card, stuck them on individually, which has given the effect. Now they are a bit hickledy-pickledy. That's because I hadn't properly sanded down to level off the inner skin and the outer skin of the parapet. But my excuse is that these have been up for quite a while, and you've got 2 horse-drawn wagons going in different directions, and occasionally they clip them or somebody leans on them too heavily and just knocks them out of place. That's my excuse anyway. So we'll see what this looks like on the railway, I think. That's it in place. I think that's going to look fairly good. I think the buttresses, looking at them, might be a bit oversized, but heavily engineered, but you know what these Victorians were. But yeah, so the only concern I've got here is the fact that while making it, it's obviously moved a bit. There is a gap at the back here, but I think the back seam's going to be very close there. I should be able to still get it in there. But I think that looks pretty good where it is. As you can see, I've got a coach just poking through, and there's plenty of room for it to get through. So yeah, pretty happy. So the bridge is complete. Well, it's not complete, it's not quite finished. It's to a stage where I wanted to get it at this point. Going forward, I've got to paint it, as I said earlier. It's got to be detailed as well. When you look at a railway bridge, normally halfway up there's some greenery, buddleia or something like that growing out of the brickwork. It'd be nice to do something with that here as well. But as I say, it's to the point I wanted it to be. And why is that? It's got to sit in the scenery. I've got to connect the road up to it and check that the road route and everything works, and I'm happy with how it looks. Once I'm happy with how it looks, I can then start developing the landform up to it. Now, I didn't want to put in this insulating foam first because it would have meant carving that out to get the road in and the bridge in. I think that would have been too awkward, you know, trying to get risers and blocks of wood in there and a firm base for the road to go on. So that's the reason. Get the road in, get the bridge in, and then do the foam up to it. Now the other thing is I've got to do is get the back scene in. So again, I can build the foam up to the back scene to make it blend in with the landscape that's shown on the back scene. As for the back scene, I don't want to go on down the paper route again, although that was a lovely print that I was using on this side and it fitted in nicely with what I needed. Being paper, it just absorbed the damp down here, and that's why it peeled off and bubbled and wasn't any good at the end of the day. The self-adhesive back scene, as far as I know, is actually printed on a plastic material, so it should be more or less damp proof. There is another option, and that is to paint one myself. I've never tried this before, but I had mentioned it to the wife a couple of years ago. I thought, you know, I'd seen it on a few videos on it, and I mentioned it to her, and she surprised me by one birthday buying me a course of 5 or 6 art lessons. And the woman I went to have the lessons with was good. I sat down with her, explained what I wanted to do, the elements I wanted in my back scene, and that's what we worked on. So she showed me some ideas about painting trees, how to do the perspective for the river disappearing into the background. So I might give it a go. It's just building up that confidence. I will have to do it indoors because I need it to be dry. I need it to be warm for the paints to dry, obviously. Though saying that, if I did do it indoors, she'll go ape if I drop paint somewhere. So I have to wait for the warm weather and do it down here. I think that's a safer option. So that's going to be a few weeks away yet, when the weather gets a bit better and a bit warmer. So in the meantime, we can get this road done. We can get the boards made for the back scene to go on, and we can start putting the landscape in. I think that's going to take me 3 or 4 weeks anyway. Hopefully by then the weather's better. Before I go, there is an apology. The lighting has not been that good in the last few videos. There's been some strobing and there's been some grainy footage as well. I found a lamp that I bought middle of last year, which is quite a good intensity LED, and it is supposedly a studio lamp. So we'll see what the quality of the lighting is now I've started using that. Enough, otherwise I'll start waffling and you'll get bored if you're not bored already. So it just leaves me to thank you for watching, thank you for staying with me, and I'll see you next time. So bye bye for now.